The following is a special presentation of the Buccaneer Sports Network. This is the Jay and Keith Show. Two broadcasters, two microphones, and one meticulously scripted podcast.
You what?
Just kidding. Get it, J, K? You get it.
That's what I thought was so funny. It's not funny.
Alongside Keith Brake, here's the voice of the Bucs, Jay Sandos.
Oh, it's a Wednesday. It is ETSU, Jay and Keith, although there's not a whole lot to talk about ETSU, except for we're going to introduce you to one of the new coaches.
ETSU football, yeah. Spring football. It's in the air.
Don't call it a comeback for Dallas Dickey.
He's been here for years.
Yeah. That's the name. He had been here for years. He left for 1 year, and he's back. I don't even know if he was gone a full year. We'll have to ask him. It's close if it wasn't. So we'll talk ETSU football.
That's a good question, yeah.
The foosball, and been out to one practice so far. I'm going to try to watch a couple more before I give some thoughts because there's a lot of drills and things, and I didn't see a lot of team things, and because really everybody wants to know what's the offense, right? No matter what we're talking about, what does it look like, what are we going to do? So we'll ask Dallas Dickey that. Tomorrow, we're going to talk to offensive line coach Jay Guillermo. So we'll get his thoughts on, Coach Quarles when he played for him in high school, maybe a little Dabo talk, Clemson, talking national champion, and kind of his coaching journey as he's been at the FCS, FBS, Power 5, and now back FCS. So, and then next week we'll try to get Kirk Gardner. So
Captain Kirk, yeah.
And we'll get we'll get everybody. I guess.
Make sure Kirk, not Kurt. Kirk.
Yeah, with
Kirk
a K.
Garner, and no G or no D rather. Garner, not Gardner. Kirk Garner.
There we go.
As opposed to Kurt Cousins, as he was known in the press conference at Washington before he signed with Minnesota the following year. That's like that. The writing was kind of on the wall at that point. No, Kirk Garner. Great guy from Baltimore. Excited to have him on staff. Jay Guillermo is Jay will fire you up. Jay Guillermo will fire you up. Yeah, that will be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to that. He's a guy that he's just passionate about the game, man. He just loves it. And great to have Dallas back. Dallas, I look forward to asking him about his D2 days as a fairly successful quarterback. Right? He's a fairly successful quarterback at West Georgia, and he got a couple opportunities to beat up on Mike Ezekiel's North Alabama Lions. So I get to ask about that. Now,
I thought he beat up on Mike Ezekiel at first, but then you clarified.
We won't talk about the one where they lost 31-28, but the following year where they won 31-10. Those were some good games. He played some good. They got a great win over Valdosta. I believe they play for a peach basket. Is that right?
I don't. You're asking me to know what West Georgia and Valdosta play for?
I mean, you're the college football sicko of the two of us, so I figured you would know.
Well, and I do have a lot of ties to Valdosta State, not many ties to West Georgia. So,
well, you do now because Dallas Dickey's going to
sit
that chair.
Well, that's the only West Georgia tie, except for I had a high school teammate actually play at West Georgia for a few years back in the day.
That sounds like you got a few.
That was mid-'90s. Mid-'90s.
You have more ties to West Georgia than I do.
Two?
Yes.
Do you have one?
I have Dallas Dickey.
There you go.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
I work in the same office building as Dallas Dickey, and that's it.
That'll do it. I got a lot of ties to the Valdosta, but yeah, that's the only West Georgia. So yeah. But that being said, I don't really know every rivalry game trophy there is out there. I appreciate that you think I do, and I like that I carry enough weight that most people probably think I do, but I do not. I don't like to lie to the people. I like to do other things. What that is, I don't know. Oh, before we get going, and we are going to talk SoCon championship game in just a second. Have you seen Cats? Because I just want to get this out there.
You're gonna. Okay, I want to know how this went for you.
Okay, so I'm trying to be the good husband. So I didn't go to the championship game, so I could watch my daughter play volleyball, which was exciting. I'm glad I did it, and it was awesome. And she played really well, and so she was super excited, so I was glad I was there for that. And then the next night we had Broadway tickets. I'd bought, the Broadway series coming to the Martin Center.
And it was very packed. My understanding is both shows were sold out.
Yeah, it was pretty jammed. It was pretty jammed. Also, adult beverages were $9 a pop, so it was like any other event. Woo! I was shocked by that.
That is a little steeper than they are at the Symphony. You should go to the Symphony, by the way. I met somebody who used to have Skip Carey babysit for him. Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, you never know who you're going to meet at these kinds of places. So, yeah, no, I wholly endorse going to the Symphony, getting some culture in that way with classical music. So you went theater.
I tried to culture myself. Now, the first show was Annie, and E-Tissue was on the road, but yeah. I would not have been lost because I know the story of Annie, would have known. Riverdance is coming up after that. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And that, unfortunately, is also sold out because I wanted to go to that.
And then the last one is Chicago, which I think is another story I'm familiar with. Cats, I had zero idea what's going on going into it.
Nobody knows what's going on in Cats. That's half the point.
Is it? Because
Hal, it's about cats.
I sat there and at least 3 times in the first act, I tried asking my wife what in the world's going on, and she kept shushing me. And then in the intermission, I ran into, 20, 30 people I knew, and all of them asked me what was going on. That's a bad sign. Okay, for those of you out there, if you're talking about something cultured, like you have a better shot of asking me what is the trophy between West Georgia and Valdosta than what the heck's going on in a play, okay? I have no idea. I sat through the 2.5-hour thing. I think at some point a cat went to heaven.
Yes,
is that right?
The end. Yes, a cat goes to heaven.
That's all I got. Other than that, I have no idea what was going on.
I think it's like born again as a new, like a different kind of cat because they're all
right. They're angelical cats. I got that.
They're angelical cats.
Yeah, that's it. I have no idea what the hell's going on. I mean, and there were people that were like, "Oh, it's the 5th time I've seen it. I've gone and seen this and there," and finally, I found there's probably a 13-year-old girl. Sitting down to my right, and we go to church with her, and I was like, hey, do you? And so she kind of gave me a little bit of an explanation, and she said, well, it's supposed to be confusing. And I was like, well, mission accomplished. If it's supposed to be confusing,
well,
mission accomplished.
Here, if you hit Pro Tools, this is the director of the original production of Cats, Hal Prince, who discussed it with Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I listened to it all and I said, Andrew, is this something I don't get? Is this about Queen Victoria? She's the main cat, and Disraeli and Gladstone are other cats, and then there are, poor cats, and am I missing this? And he took a terrible, painful, long pause and said, Hal, it's about cats, and we never discussed it again.
There you go. It's about cats.
Sure. I don't, buddy.
That is one of my all-time favorite quotes from anything ever. Is Hal? It's about cats. That's great.
It definitely was about cats.
What did you? So which cat was your favorite? Did you have a favorite cat?
Yeah, my third cousin removed, Hank Santos, was one of the characters, or a guy that played a character. So whoever he was my favorite.
Oh, okay.
I don't know which character he was.
I don't have a playbill, so I don't know.
I don't either. No, I do have one. I just don't have it on me. But that being said, whatever character he played. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you any character. There was a big fat cat that was like yay or nay on, I guess, people getting in. And then there was the cat that eventually got in. She sang great. I will say this, like I do like I get hooked on, dance shows more than I do the singing talent type shows. Like I do. So some of the dance number stuff, like I have to admit, like I was a fan of that. It was a lot of upbeat music. So I'm a big fan of upbeat, the dance. But yes, I have no, I don't know that I got everything I was supposed to, or did I get everything I was supposed to out of that?
I don't know that you did. How was that performance of Memory? Memory is like supposed to be the big iconic number from the show in Act 2.
Is that where she goes to heaven?
I don't remember.
Yeah, man, I got nothing.
Yeah, I think
I got nothing.
I think it's like right before that, and that's
there was like one cat that was
Grisabella,
like,
yeah.
There was like one cat that like started fights. I think it was a cat fight thing.
It could have been. There are probably some.
Seemed like To me, that was I don't know.
Was that Scrimble Shanks, maybe?
I don't know, but this is clearly, I'm going to put this on there that Jay doesn't understand cats, so people want to fast forward through the first 12 minutes of this. I get you, because I don't know what the heck's going on.
I'm just amazed that you have avoided saying Rum Tum Tugger at any point.
I do kind of remember that number.
Yeah.
I do kind of remember that number.
He's supposed to be, the inspiration for that character was Mick Jagger.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There was one other first act where there was like two cat burglars, if you will, play on words.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And then that one, they had some fancy dance moves. So,
okay,
I don't know. That's how. There's the breakdown. You want to talk basketball?
Yeah, we could talk basketball.
Okay, it's an easy transition. Easy transition.
There were no cats in the SoCon title game because they were eliminated in the semifinals.
There's the whatever the mocks are, because they keep changing it.
I mean, I think it used to be a mockingbird, right? I mean, at one point it was the moccasins, and they changed that, and then it became. I thought mock is now short for a mockingbird because mockingbird is the state bird,
and they have the weird bird, caricature.
I do love. They also have
Mascot,
the bird that's like a train conductor or train engineer, right, riding in the train.
Right, for the Chattanooga Choo Choos. They have
I love that logo. I think that's awesome.
I thought it was a shoe. They were the mocks. The shoe. Is that not the?
I don't think so. Maybe it's just designed to be ambiguous. Hal, it's about mocks.
Nice transition. And then you got the dens as they have on their uniform, which throws me off because I don't think anybody who is outside of the Southern Conference would know what in the world that is or what it's referring to. Mm-hmm. And I get what they're going for, but it's going to be a tough sell on the national stage.
In Dungeons and Dragons, shorthand for a paladin is a pally,
not a den.
Not a den. It's a pally
or dens.
So they should really go by the pallies.
Okay. I'll tell you what they can go by is champion, because they did
for the first time in my lifetime. And maybe the second time in yours?
Yes, I was 2 whenever they won the first one in 79, I guess.
It's been 43 years.
Yeah, and I'm
so the
45,
last time they went to the dance is 80. So, yeah, 43 years. It's a long time.
Yeah, well, I guess technically it was right before my 3rd birthday then, because I was born in April. So that makes sense. Okay.
There you
All
go.
Right, there we go.
Happy early birthday.
I was almost 3. It was plenty of time. Everyone remembers that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
I totally remember the time
Good
I
for
fell
them.
out of a
That was
shopping
before the
cart.
3-point line, for those of you checking.
Yes, which the SoCon was one of the first conferences to implement.
That it was.
And don't you forget it. We will not be allowed to forget that.
As we have the one of the longest streaks in the history of the world at shooting threes consecutively.
I was gonna say, that's something that's like a biker gang credo. It's like the SoCon was one of the first conferences to implement the 3-point arc.
Was somebody, I will say this, brought it up that I misspoke, that Clemson, I think, was the only Southern Conference team to win 4 games in 4 days back in 1938, and I apologize for not knowing that. But in the modern Southern Conference thing, nobody's won 4 in 4, and it goes back to the same thing. They look like Chattanooga. The legs got to them. On the few things I was able to watch, and I kind of tuned in and out.
Especially early. Yeah, they just weren't crisp out of the gate.
And honestly, Furman had a little bit of the Furman lull that they tend to have. An 8-10 minute spurt where they don't look real good.
Yeah.
Now, they look pretty good the other 30 minutes, but there was about a 10-minute spurt there where they didn't look particularly great, and Chattanooga got back into it because early on it looked like, this was going to be just a mass drubbing by Furman, and they were really going to run away with it. And they still healthy lead, never really in doubt. Chattanooga, about 5 minutes ago, got it to like a 6-point game, and then Furman did a great job of just stretching it right back out. It seemed like every time I turned on the tube, and there were not as many threes as I looked at later, but it seemed like every time that I would kind of flip back to the game that Furman was knocking down a 3 when they needed it.
Yeah, they hit shots when they needed to, and Chattanooga, like I said, just not crisp in the first half like they needed to be. I think they rallied to a 40% percentage, but they were down. I mean, they got themselves in a 19-point hole at one point, and you can't do that against Furman and expect to win. And the fact that they got it down to 5, I said, okay, we're in business. But the closest they got, I want to say they got it down to 2 early in the second half, and then Furman kept them at a pretty safe distance the rest of the way. Overall, I just thought Furman was the better team over the balance of the 40 minutes. Yes, the 4th game in 4 days hurt Chattanooga, but they still had a chance at it. I mean, it's not like they just missed opportunities and got themselves in a hole. It's one of those instances where you can't win a game in the first 10 minutes, but you can lose it, and that's what Chattanooga did. Is they came out kind of offensively, they were just kind of flat, shots weren't falling, and by the time they got back into it, they had already dug themselves a hole that they couldn't dig out of.
And for Furman, they finally get to the mountaintop. Bob Ritchie, for a decade, seems like he's had one of the top 3 teams in the league, give or take a year or two, maybe not. But for the most part, he's had a top 3 team, but hasn't been able, to add that resume, builder to move on to another job, to take his team to an NCAA championship. He was able to do so, and I think he has progressed the last several years to getting more guys in the rotation, getting deeper. They have fresher legs at the end of games, at the end of the year. And I think that small progression of either adding depth or trusting his depth, because it would always seem like he would have to replace all conference guys, and you'd be like, well, these guys are now all conference. Like, could they not play before, or is it all conference because they're playing all 40 minutes and they're eating up all the stats or whatever it may be? But the last couple of years, I've given Bob credit that Coach Ritchie has been able to get more playing time, and in this game, 8 players played 13 or more minutes. 6 players played 25 or more minutes. So you're starting to see a little bit more depth, and I think that helped. And I think it also showed that they had 2 guys that had been in the program for 5 years and had contributed, and Mike Bothwell and Jalen Slauson, and for them, unbelievable ending to what they had great careers.
But how about the growth of J.P. Pegues over the course of the second half of the year? That guy was kind of like he's out there. You can tell he's got a lot of potential, but he's clearly a bit player. This is Bothwell and Slauson's team, and he just had a tournament for the ages. It was fantastic. A player that's going to be, the next problem for SoCon teams over the next 3 years. As I was just really, really impressed by what he brought to the table. I believe he's a freshman or a sophomore. I want to say he's a freshman. Just really outstanding work for Pegues. He's a sophomore. And the next 2 years are going to be headache city, migraine city for a lot of coaches in the SoCon if Pegues stays, because he is the next guy that is going to be that dude. I don't think he hit a 3 in the title game, but he still found a way to score 17 points. And he was in a situation where, hey, other teams are going to take Slauson away. They're going to take Bothwell away. They're going to really play to the matchups. They're going to drill down on those. They're going to execute on those defensively. You are going to have to take more shots, and you're going to have to find ways to score. And he was 7 of 9 from inside the arc. And that's scoring right there. That's getting it done. That'll get it done. He was really, really good to watch, and I think that Furman team is going to be at the very least, going to be an adequate representative of the 2023 Southern Conference in the NCAA tournament.
And I think, assuming Bob Ritchie doesn't get another job, then they only lose 2 players. And they're really good ones, and Bothwell and Slauson. Mm-hmm. But everybody that contributed would be back. They've already signed, I think, a couple guys early. So, Furman hasn't had the attrition of guys leaving. Now, when you went to a tournament and you kind of get that kind of checked off, there's a couple of guys that would be seniors. Would they be wanting to go? My guess, if Bob Ritchie comes back, probably not. All bets are off if, obviously, Coach Ritchie were to go, even if they kept an assistant. Sometimes you still see guys go. So Furman could be pretty well stacked again for next season. Now, again, they lose 2 ridiculous players, and Slauson was kind of an all-everything where Bothwell really just put the team on his back into the regular season and in the conference tournament with J.P. Pegues. So I think Furman's got a good chance next year if Coach Ritchie comes back of being probably a favorite to win the thing next year, depending on what happens in the league, depending on what players leave, and that could change. But again, Furman's done a good job of keeping most of their players. Noah Gurley, really the only guy I can think of for Furman at left. He went to Alabama. They're pretty good. He's not getting any action, but he's on a pretty good team. I think they'll get – so now you got to play the seed game. What seed do you think they'll get? I think a 13 right now would be my guess. But as conference tournaments wrap up, are there more upsets that could get them to a 12, which obviously the chances of winning at a 12 greater than at a 13. But I think they'll probably be around a 13 would be my guess. I haven't seen the latest projections on bracketology and all this other stuff. And that's a very fluid thing because here shortly, what's his name's going to work overtime about every 32 seconds to update his Joe Lenardi, or if you like that one, I think he's going to start updating that literally at
Lenardi has
game.
10 Big teams in, 10 Big Ten teams in, and that is absurd. And I'm so glad, by the way, that College of Charleston won their conference tournament, and we don't have to sit here and have consternation over whether a 30-win mid-major is going to get in. They won 30 games. And the idea was, they might not get in. And, at that point, what is the point of the tournament? The tournament's not representative. Split Division I in half again. And let's actually have mid-major representation in a tournament somewhere. Because that would have been utterly ridiculous. I would have been outraged. You would not have been able to sit within 10 feet of me. I would have been yelling so loudly. David Lilly, who's just down the hall from us, would come over and be like, hey, guys, could you keep it down? I mean, I get that you're fired up, but, man, I'm trying to recruit. It would have been a problem. I would have been a problem. I would be fit to be tied if Charleston had been left out. So I'm glad they won. But, yeah, 10 Big Ten teams in that's atrocious. That was the last I saw. Now, it might have changed. But, yeah.
Well, right now, if you just look at Lenardi's a 14 Furman against number 3 Gonzaga.
I hate that.
Let's see. Who's right. So a 13. So the 14 seeds right now, Louisiana, who just won the Sun Belt, ETSU again, sitting there looking at them. Kennesaw State, UC Irvine are the 14s again, according to Lenardi here, and this is the easiest one to click on right now.
Kennesaw State.
The 13s, Toledo, Yale, Iona, and Utah Valley.
Okay.
So
and the 12. Where's Oral Roberts? Are they a 12?
Let's see. VCU's a 12. Drake's a 12. Oral Roberts is a 12, and Charleston's a 12.
Where's ORU going?
Right now, in this one, they would play Iowa State and Albany.
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. That team just torched North Dakota State in the Summit League title game last night. It was a 31-point game at halftime. But, it's an interesting team to watch because they have been able to hang on to a big portion of their core, that being Max Asmus and Trey McBride. Been really, really good for them for a while.
Where do you fall in the Ivy League, student-athletes suing the Ivy League for conspiring to what was the exact term? A pair of basketball players from Brown allege a federal lawsuit against the Ivy League for not offering athletic scholarships amounts to price-fixing agreement that denies athletes proper financial aid and payment for their services.
I think it's hilarious.
Then don't go there because you know that they're not giving you athletic scholarships.
I think that's really interesting that it's that a conference cannot set that rule of actually. You are we're not going to offer grants and aid.
But is I mean, this is America, right? They probably had other scholarship offers and chose the Ivy League, or they did have a scholarship offer. Do you think the Ivy League players most have scholarship offers somewhere else and choose to go to Ivy League? You choose to go to that school. It's not like they draft you, right? You choose to go to a school. And you don't know that that's the deal? I'm very confused on what is this is a known thing.
The Ivy League is extremely disingenuous about a lot of things pertaining to intercollegiate athletics these days. So any time that they get their name dragged through the mud in court over something related to athletics.
Or you're just mad they don't play in the playoffs.
I am extremely mad that they don't play in the football playoffs.
Right.
If they didn't play in every offseason or every postseason, fine. Sure. Okay, that's fine. But you're going to not play in football, but you're going to play in basketball. You're going to bend over backwards to
or
be
baseball
in the NCAA tournament.
or
baseball. Or baseball when the kids aren't on campus anymore. The semester's been over for like 3 weeks. You're going to send them to a regional anyway. That's stupid. But, yeah, no, I think that's hilarious. I also think that conferences that set rules that limit what leagues can offer or what teams can offer in terms of like incentives to play for a specific institution, I think those conferences and member schools are going to be paying very close attention to the proceedings as they pertain to that particular Ivy League suit. I'll be very interested to watch that.
Yeah, so like the Patriot League football, right? They don't offer.
The Patriot League changed that. The NEC caps scholarships at 40, though, I believe. Okay. I believe the Patriot League changed to 60, and that it would just be like, well, you have to offer 63 because that's what FCS maximum allows you to do.
I think that'd be interesting. I guess you're saying it's okay if the school makes a decision. You don't think the league should make a decision.
If the schools their argument basically boils down to if the schools had made the decision independently of each other without communicating with one another, hey, we're going to do this, so you should do it too, then that would be okay. But they're alleging that the schools, I'm going to use this word, it's a loaded word, colluded in not offering athletic scholarships so as not to give one school an unfair advantage over the other members of the conference.
All right.
Yeah.
I just didn't see if you saw that. I know how you felt, so I thought that was an easy one to
It was absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. But yeah, SoCon, Furman, I think, will be an adequate representative. They'll put up a fight against the Zags. I don't think they would beat Gonzaga.
Of course, that's not who they're playing yet. That's just who's projected.
Right. That's just projection. And Lenardi, as we have all come to understand, is not the definitive. Like he's the bracketologist with the biggest platform. But he is not the best one.
He is not. I forgot which one. We did this last year. We looked up the one that's, I don't know, last 10 years has gotten most of the teams in the field. Last year, I think that guy got 67 of the 68. It was something crazy. And it averaged 60. Well, that's loaded because it wasn't always 68, but it averaged like 62 of the 64 and like 65 of the 68 was on average, and last year the guy was 67 of 68, so we were using his last year.
Was it some kind of obscure long-form website name like goaskyourmamasbracket.com or something? Something like that. Maybe we
also like the
wasn't actually that.
You ever gone to the there's one that's got a matrix where it does like it engulfs like 60 bracketologists and it gives you the full spit out of who's what. We did that a lot, especially during the 30 and 4 run for ETSU as it was getting more and more. We were trying to see because some would have them at like a 6 and some would have them like a 12, and it was all over the thing. So it was fun because they would. And again, some of those sites only did an update once every other week, and some were doing them daily. But anyways, it was
right.
I could probably look. I think I got it saved on my other computer.
You probably do.
So, because I do like that, and it will be fun to see where Furman falls and to see because the league was a little down. I think it would be tough.
I would agree. Yeah.
To argue that. So, how does that play into it? And Furman at least winning the regular season championship, I think, will give them a little bit of a boost. Because I think if they were the 3 seed with the same record, I think they win the regular season championship, so people kind of automatically bump you down. But because they were the regular season champion, I'm hoping that gets them. And I hope they get, a 13 is better than a 14. Although ETSU's 1 out of 14, it's very difficult. 14 over 3, you get to that 13, but the percentages of the 12 over 5, that's really where you
that's where your trendy upset picks are. Your trendy mid-major picks tend to go is the 12s.
Okay,
which probably says that they should maybe be seated a little higher.
So tomorrow, let's do Portal Watch. What do we think about that? Do that tomorrow?
You want to do it tomorrow? Or you want to do it right now? I mean, I got a couple names right now.
And you think there'll be a couple more tomorrow?
I think there could be more.
We're
getting to the point. So right now it's all grad transfers.
All right, well, let me ask you this. What else do we have to talk about tomorrow?
We're going to have Say What tomorrow.
Ooh, we've not had that in a while. Is it anything with me dealing with cats?
It is now.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be in there now because it has to be.
Yes,
but no, it's going to be you dealing with putts.
All right. So
and the 60s being the new 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And what else did I have? Coaches learning what sticks, what lessons stick. And there was something else. I had to. Oh, yeah. Someone is really, really, really fired up about toilets.
I'm just going to leave everybody hanging on toilets.
Toilets!
Portal Watch.
All right. So, as you know, or you may know, the transfer portal window opens Monday, March 13th. Graduate transfers are not restricted to the portal window. So graduate transfers can enter the portal essentially whenever they desire. But
so even if they haven't graduated, they can enter.
If they are expected to graduate, they can enter as a graduate transfer.
I find that real fascinating. Are we just going with the assumption everybody's going to graduate?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a perfect NCAA thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit. So most recently, BJ Mack was a notable entry into the transfer portal from the Southern Conference. Messiah Jones has joined him as well in the transfer portal. And several others have made their way into the portal that are notable from the SoCon. Conway from VMI. We also saw another one that I'm trying to... Stephen Clark from the Citadel is in as a graduate transfer. None of these are particularly shocking right at this point. Marlo Gilmore from Western Carolina has entered the portal according to verbal commits. And also, according to verbal commits, and I think are we able to confirm D'Anthony Tipler?
Yeah, he's on the list.
He's in the transfer portal.
Yes.
So Tip is going to grad transfer somewhere else, and wish him all the best of luck. And that's kind of the extent of SoCon movement to this point. And I really don't know that anybody looks at that list. If you were just a neutral observer of the SoCon, you might be disappointed to see some of those guys move on, like Clark. But at the same time, you say, okay, sure, makes sense. You got your degree, you played there 4 years. You go see what's next. Same with Jones, same with Mack, and same with Conway at VMI as well. You've got one more. I believe it's in the transfer portal.
Interesting. Charlie Weber is in, and so basically, from what I gather, is he's going to go to try to another school to see if the second opinion and medically can get cleared. ETSU did not feel comfortable doing that, and Charlie was okay with that. But now that Charlie's taken a full year off and has graduated, maybe has a little bit more of the itch to play one more season, is going to see that. And ETSU will, I'm sure, turn over all the medical stuff they got with that to the next school, and that'll be up to the next school. So even though he's in there, that does not mean that he will be cleared, but there's also a chance, obviously, he could be cleared by another school. And so if he is cleared and he can play, wish Charlie all the best. I think he did as much as he could at ETSU. He certainly weathered some storms. He came with Coach Forbes, and then was here with Coach Shea, and now with Coach Oliver. So he's in there as well. We'll have to see, and this list will continue to grow every single day as it has
will.
For.
We're seeing a lot of non-D1 transfers that are starting to filter in. A couple of SAC players. There's been a couple of intriguing players from other conferences that have started to filter in. I think Anthony Selden at Gardner-Webb is a player that maybe could have a little bit of interest from some people. I'm not sure of his exact output, but I saw that name and I was like, that sounds like I knew that name from somewhere.
Well, I can tell you, Chris Ledlam at Harvard, who I saw play twice.
It's going to get a lot of interest.
He's going to be a high major, and he was a 6'5" or 6'6", 230-pound power forward in the Ivy League. It averaged almost a double-double at 20 and 8 a game, or 8.5 a game, and so he's going to get a lot of looks. That was one where my radar, when I saw him pop up, was like, hey, coaching staff, you think you can get him? I said, buddy, there's high majors already all over him. He's going to have a great look at it. So there'll be some interesting names. That, and again, and that's what I like about some of those MTEs, right? Because I've seen Harvard play every once in a while, but when there's something different about actually your own eyes in person seeing things that don't necessarily translate on TV. And I think Chris Ledlam is a heck of a player. That will play at a higher level than the Southern Conference. But, boy, I'd love to see, obviously, him and a bunch of other guys in the ETSU uniform.
Selden 11-5 and 4-5, 11.5 and 4.5 this year at Gardner-Webb, and 700 points in 3 seasons. So, decent player. Clearly feels like he has something else to give to somebody else. And I hope it works out for these guys. I feel like there are a lot of players that go in the portal for a lot of different reasons, and discussions about the portal really seem to lack nuance for why those players go in and also why they might not get picked up. But I hope for the best for the kids because, man, I was able to transfer to another school, to ETSU, and get an opportunity, and that opportunity launched my career to places that I never even imagined it going. I never imagined living in North Dakota. I barely even imagined living in North Carolina. So I hope for the best for people that decide to take that step to somewhere else. Whether it's because you're going to go get a graduate degree, get a master's degree paid for, or whatever it is, wish those kids all the best of luck.
And I know a lot of people are like, well, what about Christian Shaw? Well, he can't, just as Keith said, he can't officially go in till Monday, although he's put out on Twitter 1,000 times he's in the portal.
That he intends to enter the portal.
Well, no, he said he is in the portal and he's waiting on offers, but I think somebody had to reach out to him and tell him nobody can offer you because you're not actually in the portal yet. Just because you've left school and you told everybody you go in the portal, there's actually paperwork you have to do. So he will officially be in the portal on Monday. So that's why we've not really talked about
and that's when a lot of people will start to get anxious about, okay, who's coming back, who's not. What is roster turnover actually going to look like across college basketball? Because that's when a lot of teams' seasons are going to end, and that's when underclassmen, can enter the portal. These are all. Again, everybody that's in right now, at least at the Division I level, everybody that's in right now is graduate transfers. So just be aware of that when you see a player that's in or a player that's not in, and you see a player that's not in, and you're like, phew, that player's staying. It's not a given yet.
I mean, again, yes, if a player has, if a freshman like Christian Shaw said, I'm in the portal, I'm going, they're probably going to go in and officially be in at some point, but they're not actually in yet. And if they actually sign with a different school, then that's going to raise more questions because legality of it. That's why I saw Shaw a couple times. I was like, hey, man, I'm still out here. Nobody's contacted me. And I think finally somebody at ETSU actually told them, like, hey, they can't yet and you're not actually in yet. You got to. So there's a lot of misinformation out there for a lot of kids on how this stuff works.
I also think, again, this goes back to the lack of nuance on transfers. Because I saw somebody talk about this with North Dakota State. They said, North Dakota State lost a bunch of players to the transfer portal and they could have panicked. That's like the players that they lost, with one exception, were players that they knew were probably not coming back or were definitely not coming back. Like Sam Griesel, who grad transferred to Nebraska, and Tyree Edey, who grad transferred to North Texas. Those guys huddled up with Rocky Cruiser, who was the other senior last year, and said, we want to play one more season together. Edey and Cruiser got their degrees, and they said, we're moving on. We're out of here. this is the moment to hand it off to the next generation. And they talked about that with their coach going into the season. And so the coaching staff was able to prepare, and that's why they were able to go out and get their first-choice high school players. And they started 2 freshmen in that title game last night that were pretty doggone good in Tajavis Miller and Damari Wheeler-Thomas. So, there's also an element when you see a player, especially a grad transfer in the portal, they probably had a conversation with their coach early on. It's like, hey, are you thinking about it? Do you want to do this? Have you made up your mind that you're leaving? It's like, I want to stay. I want to see this through as long as I can, or it's time to hand it off to the next group of guys. I've done everything I can, or, I want to see what's out there. This is a year that I wasn't going to have. Otherwise, a lot of these grad transfers would be out of eligibility right now if it weren't for the COVID waiver. And I think coaches in general respect that. So I think we should not immediately jump to conclusions when you see a bunch of players, especially older players in the portal. Don't go throw yourself in the thresher and say, woe is me, my program's falling apart, or such and such team's falling apart, because this may be something that they've already planned for and accounted for in their recruiting. And if a program has a healthy culture, everybody's on the same page about it when it comes time to do that stuff. So don't immediately jump to conclusions about the ills of the portal or players trying to find greener grass somewhere. Every situation is different. Every situation requires context. Applying a blanket to this really does a disservice to everyone on every end of the process.
I think it's hard, especially to knock somebody if they actually got a degree from where they were at. Like, if you have a degree,
you honored your commitment.
Right, and you want to do something else, and sometimes, and this is gonna shock people, but sometimes people actually go to grad school for an actual degree they want to go to that their school doesn't have. It's not always sports. And we can't talk about a player football because he's verbally committed, but he's not actually, and he's going to graduate with his undergrad degree, but he chose ETSU because of a particular graduate program that other schools that probably were a little higher profile didn't have, and he's going to choose to play an extra year of football at ETSU. So there are people out there that it does mean something like, hey, I'm going to play one more year, but I'm going to do this. Or, but if you earn, to me, it's hard to look at somebody if they spent 4 years. And again, the COVID year is also throwing a lot of monkey wrenches into everything. Getting that 5th year to actually play as opposed to 4 years, right? You get 5 years to play 4. Well, now you get 5 years to play 5 because of the COVID year. So in like 2 years, the number of people that are going to transfer and do extra grad transfers and all that are going to go way down. So this will self-correct somewhat. Now, there's still the gratification of I'm a freshman. Well, coach told me I could probably get 15 minutes a game. Well, I only got 3 minutes a game, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer. Yes, there's some of that. There is
a little of that, but it's not nearly as much as people play it up to be in the media when they're trying to scare kids into staying out of the portal.
Yeah, if I was going to scare somebody in the portal, I would just say that there were 1,200 basketball players that didn't find a home last year, and there were over 2,500 football players. That would be my scare tactic more than anything else. And I think that's the harsh reality.
But again, we don't know how many of those guys were told, and we don't like it when this happens, but those guys were told you don't have a spot here. Like they didn't have the choice of coming back. Or they weren't given the choice of coming back as a scholarship player, so they wanted to see what was out there because they weren't going to have a spot. Like, we don't know how many players had that conversation with a coach and said, yeah, it's probably in my best interest to move on, or a coach said it's in your best interest to move on, because we don't like it when that happens, but it does happen.
Oh, no doubt.
It happens a lot. So I don't think it's fair to immediately just say, oh, there's so many players that didn't find a home because they jumped in the portal because they were unhappy. Some of those guys were not going to have a spot at their old school anyway. So, this conversation requires so much nuance and so much more nuance than I think we are even equipped to give it, that it requires a much more deft touch than a lot of people are giving it.
Speaking of touch, Dallas Dickey, he's in touch. You want to talk to him?
Dallas Dickey coaches the guys with the best hands on the team, the wide receivers.
All right, we're back. back on Jay and Keith, Buccaneer Sports Network. As promised, we're going to talk a little football.
Football.
Because we love football. Oh, there it is. I always go a little early.
You were waiting for the wah-wah pedal. You were really waiting for it.
I don't know about the pedal, but I like the wah-wah. All right, let's talk to, we like to call him Double D. Actually, I've never called him that before in my life, but Dallas Dickey, the wide receiver coach, is here. And second tour of duty with ETSU. And Dallas, first, thanks for taking the time. And let's start really with the journey because, I think you've done what a lot of coaches do, which is just try to get in the door. And you're able to do that with Coach Randy Sanders. And so take us through sort of, I know how your relationship got with Randy, but talk about sort of that and getting here the first stint.
Exactly right. Well, first off, hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. My first podcast, so I'm excited. And but yeah, the journey. So everybody's got journeys. It's funny you mentioned Coach Sanders and our relationship. He was coaching at Florida State before coming to ETSU, and my dad and Coach Sanders were actually on the same team together, 1985, University of Tennessee there, and they were actually in the same meeting room. So, they became friends over time, and through the coaching world have, continued to be friends. And when Coach Sanders was coaching down there at Florida State, I went down there and worked camps, summer camps, summer after summer, just trying to get a job down there with him, trying to get my foot in the door, so to speak, and didn't necessarily work out at Florida State. But when Coach Sanders got the job here in 2018, he called me shortly after and said, "Hey, I got a quality control position for you on offense. See how you worked at camp, see how you work with the guys, and so you got a little bit of football knowledge at least, and I'll give you a shot." So he took a chance on me, and I went down there and worked and sweated my butt off, and halfway babysitted some third graders, and then tried to teach a few 10th graders how to throw a football or run some routes, and whatever I did down there, more or less just some hard work, got me in the door up here in Johnson City at ETSU.
All right, so you get here at ETSU, and one of your jobs, which is one of my favorite things, was you're the hand signal guy.
Yes.
And so I used to love occasionally to walk in and just read something on the board that I have no idea what it meant and would, what is that? And then you would throw up some hand signals and, here's how we call it. I have no idea what's going on. How long did it take you to understand the hand sign language of football, and did you ever practice in the mirror?
No, I did not practice in the mirror. But, it was one of those things where I'd done it in the past, and playing quarterback, I obviously had to – understand the sign language coming in from the sideline, so to speak, or as we call it, our language. Sometimes you can hear, sometimes you can't, but first thing you got to do if you're an offensive player is get the signal, right? And if you don't know the signals, then we can't even get started. So it's definitely a process, and it's something we practice every day, but it can be you definitely got to work through the kinks, and, there's definitely you got to be decisive in signaling plays, and because a lot of words, right? There's only so many hand signals I can come up with sometimes, but you got to be creative, got to be decisive, and that way the players can get where they need to be, and we can get the ball snapped, and everybody's on the same page.
So you go from ETSU, from quality control, hand signal guy, you get a chance to not that you're not coaching and doing things, but there's limitations at the the quality control. You go to UT Martin last year, wide receivers coach. Talk about that step up and that opportunity and what you learned last season.
Yeah, no, it was actually, I went out there, rolled the dice, and I went out there to be a restricted earnings coaching to coach the running backs. I don't know. I mean, not many people know that because I ended up coaching the receivers, but I went out there to coach the running backs, and it's funny how God works. The receiver coach, he had a baby girl and wanted to move back closer to home, and after spring ball, he left. And, the receiver coaching job was open, so I walked into Coach Simpson's office. I said, "Hey, I've been coaching receivers or working with receivers for 6 years now. I feel ready for this position, ready for this opportunity. I'd love to go all in on it." And, luckily enough, the timing was right, and I got the opportunity to coach the receivers there, and Coach Simpson has done a great job having a lot of really good players there, and more or less it really just I had my own opportunity to run a room. I had about 17 guys in the room, so it was hard to balance, the egos and because hey, every receiver wants the ball, right?
Hold on. I'm sorry. That's a news flash. Receivers have egos. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, everybody wants the ball, right? Everybody wants to play. So usually there's only about 3 of them out there at a time, and I learned that hey, they love to work, and they want to see the rewards that they for the work that they put in, and hey, I can't be mad at them for that, right? So, but at the end of the day, we got to play the ones that give the team the best chance to win, and it taught me that hey, there's a lot of details that go into the wide receiver position, and a lot of variables, and you better do everything in your power to make sure that hey, they know what to do, whether it's walkthroughs, meetings, drawing, test, whatever it is. But one of the biggest things I learned was, hey, you just got to be real with them. If you're real with them, they, whether it's good or bad, at times, they can respect that and they can roll with the punches there usually. And I thought that the guys at UT Martin, they rode with me pretty strong there, and we created a good bond, out there on the field in the summer, whatever it is, working, trying to increase everybody's individual value and become the best group that we can be. Therefore, we can become the best offense we can be.
Dallas, I'm from Dixon. And we like to joke that UT Martin was Dixon County West because a lot of Dixon County kids would end up there.
Yep.
It's not big, and it's kind of out of the way.
Sure.
Do you think, from your perspective, was that a good first opportunity to work with a room, just from the perspective of there's not a big city, there's not a whole lot going on, everybody is here with a purpose and a mission of we're going to focus on football, we're going to focus on
Sure, absolutely. I mean, hey, anytime you can limit distractions, I think that's a benefit for your group. And, that was something that was good for me and good for the guys because – hey, we can go out there and, voluntary, do whatever. I mean, hey, I'm not telling anybody they got to be here, but, it might be Saturday at 1 o'clock. If y'all want to come out here, we can do some, I give y'all a sheet of paper. I can kind of watch from the stands or whatever it is, and we can kind of get through this together and grind together and create that bond between a coach and a player. And yeah, I thought it was good because a lot of kids, like you said, there was a lot of the players, they only went there for long story short, one reason, and that was to be the best football player that they could be. And that was a fun journey to be a part of.
You were a pretty good quarterback at West Georgia, and you had some great battles with Mike Ezekiel over in the sports information department. Was at North Alabama about the same time, and you had some pretty good battles with the Lions. But what is being a guy who's a signal caller, not just as a quarterback and all the responsibility that come with that, but for a program that's got expectations and a program that's having success while you're there and you're part of that success? What do you take from that you try to impart to the next generation of players that are now 8-10 years younger than you?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think of anything, you try to figure out what made you successful and how do I get that across to this group, and long story short, hey, I just try and keep it real. Hard work's going to pay off. There's no substitute for hard work. You got to know what to do and know how to do it. Each, all with all the variables that come with it. And then, I think the time that you put in together as an offensive unit, that way everybody, you feel, okay, the quarterback can feel, all right, on a 6-step out, I know how this receiver is going to, come out of this break. I think the continuity is something that it takes a long time to develop, but I do think that goes a long way when it's the fourth quarter and the game's on the line, and we got to have a first down, right? And hey, it's not always easy, right? So I think that putting in the work and sometimes having some highs and sometimes having some lows will help mold you into the best player you can be, the best person you can be, and the best team that you can be. And it's not, like I said, it's not always perfect, but you gotta find a way or make a way. So what? Now what? Right? So what are you gonna do about it now? And you try and learn from the previous plays, and and just become the best player you can be each and every day. And you got to be all in, and the more people that are all in and want to be the best player that you can be, and be the best player that God gave you the ability to be, then everybody's on the same page. Everybody's got the same stroke as far as rowing the boat, and got the same vision in mind. I think in a lot of ways there's not many things that can stop you.
What did it mean to you to represent Carrollton? I mean, you were there for a long. I mean, that's home.
Yeah, no, it means a lot. Carrollton is a lot of people call it the city of dreams, but yeah, I spent 12 years there, and it's a special place to me. And I obviously played at Carrollton High School, then ended up playing at West Georgia for my dad there for 2 years, and then Coach Hall for 2 years, and got to stick around and coach for 2 years. So. It's a great spot, and but it taught me that the small town sometimes it was the perfect spot for me when it came to moving into making my transition into high school. And I was a guy that always loved football, and if you ever been to Carrollton High School, you can tell that football is certainly at the top of the list in that city, and I was just blessed to be able to be a part of it. And we had a lot of really good players, a lot of really good people, a lot of really good coaches, and helped me develop to become the young man I am today.
Quarterbacks, as we all know, have perfect recall, right? Wide receivers, corners, so those guys are next play. It's short memory.
That's right.
Quarterback can remember everything that's happened. They just have to block it out for a short period of time. So what game do you remember most vividly from your playing days? Could be a win, could be a loss. What game do you remember most vividly?
Oh man, there's some ones that stick out for sure. Obviously playing in the state championship game my junior year in high school, that was a big one. Probably the first playoff game in West Georgia Stadium, though, it meant a lot to me. We had a first round bye there my senior year, and we got to play Tuskegee in the second round. And the first home playoff game at Rayland Stadium, I just so happened to have a career day. I mean, our offensive line, they were blocking. I mean, I was back there eating sandwiches, reading the defenses, had all the time in the world. And receivers made a lot of good plays, and it was a great day for the Wolves. And, it was a picture-perfect Saturday. I had career-high passing yards, and we ran them out of the stadium. And it's a packed house. And, first playoff game in Rayland Stadium, we came out with a win. So I thought that one sticks out pretty strong for me.
Well, let me ask you this, because me and Keith work with a couple of quarterbacks, former ETSU quarterbacks, and the one thing I've learned about quarterbacks is that, at least the broadcasting side, they're apologists. It's never the quarterback's fault. Well, now you're on the other side. You're the receiver.
Sure.
Whose fault is it on some of this stuff?
Oh, man. I would put it on a little bit of both, right? So everybody's we're in there together. Yeah, exactly right. So, we got to
look at towing the line here.
That's why
he's already made
no,
the transition.
We're on the fence. We're on the fence. So, I would say that, we got to iron it out there. That's why you got all spring, all summer, and, routes on air, whatever you got to do to make sure everybody's on the same page. And, coverage dictates a lot of things and can create a lot of variables. So you try and, rep every situation possible. That way in the game, when no telling what coverage you're going to see, man, zone, whatever it is, that the quarterback and the receiver are on the same page, and they got the trust and a belief in each other, and that way the quarterback can let it go when he needs to. That way when the receiver's coming out of the break, ball's in the air, right? And so it's a two-way street, I would say. Now when I was playing quarterback, I say, hey, you got to take that one a little deeper or something. So.
Sure, like I said.
But,
so I'm very well versed in the quarterback apologist room. That being said, Dallas, let's go back to, you're UT Martin. You finished the first year. All of a sudden, you get an opportunity to come back. Tell us how that kind of came about, how that conversation started, and how easy or difficult was it for a decision to come back?
And I was actually doing the dishes at my place in Martin, and I heard my phone ring. And it was Coach Quarles, and he called me, and long story short, pretty much offered me the receiver coaching job. And, it's never easy to leave a place that you spent. I was there for almost a year exactly. Grinded in there, put a lot of work into it, and put a lot of time and effort, and created a lot of bonds with those guys. There's good people out there, just like there is here, and but for me to have an opportunity to come back to a place that closer to home. I've been I've been coming to Knoxville ever since I was less than a year old, and to be able to be back in East Tennessee means a lot to me. With my granddad and my dad, having been at Tennessee for a long time, and just being able to be back here in this region and have the opportunity to coach with Coach Quarles. Who's a Knoxville man himself and had so much success there in Knoxville, and to be able to, come back to a place that I called home for 4 years, and to a place where I know that we can be successful, and and be a part of the Southern Conference again. It was certainly hard, but I thought the pros outweighed the cons, and so therefore I thought it was. I thought it was advantageous to come back to Johnson City and rep the E again, and I'm just excited to be back. We've actually had 3 days under our belt under spring ball, and I'm excited as ever to get back out there today. So
yeah, you obviously felt from your own words like it was a really good fit with the staff and the community and the university. Mm-hmm. How appealing was the level of talent that's available in this room with Huzzy and so many other guys? It just really feels like, and Jay and I have talked about this a couple times, this might be the deepest position group on the entire football team.
Yeah, no doubt. It was obviously I looked to see who was coming back, and I know most of these guys already, right? Because I was on their official visits and a part of the recruiting process, or So obviously I looked to see who was coming back, and I knew what we had here, and that certainly helps, right? But like you said, we certainly got a deep room, and got the ceiling is high, and hey, I push them every day. Let's be the best position group on the team, and only thing we can do from here is all right. We got to put the work in, right? So we go out there and work in individual. We got to know what to do in the team periods. We got to play with a chip on our shoulder, and when that ball's in the air, we got to go get it. And I expect nothing less. Now I'm sure every coach will tell you, hey, we got to be the best position group on the team. But I truly do think that we got a chance to be one of the better position groups on the team. And hey, anytime that there's high expectations, there's pressure. But if there's no expectations or no pressure, then that's usually not a good thing. So I'm certainly excited. I mean, like you said, we got some really special players, special people in that room, and can't wait to see what's in store for them in the 2023 season.
Well, let's talk about the offense, because that's been the talk of the town and the number one question probably me and Keith get outside the office, because last year that Adam Neugebauer kind of switched the system. Mm-hmm. Coach Quarles has peeled the curtain back a little bit on what's going on. We've talked to Tyler Riddell and try to pick his brain a little bit. How would you describe what you guys are trying to accomplish offensively and the game plan, with obviously not trying to give away too much stuff?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it starts with any, like you would say, any offense would say, hey, we got to be able to run the ball, right? And we got to be able to run the ball, whether it's gap schemes, zone schemes. I think that's where it all starts. Being able to move people up front, maybe potentially move the pocket a little bit, get the quarterback out of the pocket, and then obviously in the pass game we got to be able to have some good timing, good spacing, and get the guys open when they need to be open. I would say anybody can get them open, but hey, when can you get them open in time with the quarterback and the reads, right, and getting them through the coverage, right? But I would say a little more balanced attack. Everybody talks about tempo. Yeah, we'll probably have some tempos in there, but I think controlling the time of possession and being able to run the ball at times. That's how we won in 2018 through 2021. We were able to run the ball and control the clock, and keep the ball away from the other team. And you could feel a lot of times we were in control of the game, and as opposed to having to play from behind, or where the time of possession is heavily in the other team's favor. That's always tough, especially for the defense. So I would say just being balanced, trying to find ways to get our best players the ball, and hey, how can we move some people off the rock? And you got to have good players. You got to have good players. Got to be able to sustain good players and keep them around, and show them that, hey, we can get them to the next level just as easy as anywhere. And hey, there's a lot of good players, a lot of good teams in the SoCon, so you're going to play a lot of really good competition. And, and we're going to help develop you and give you every chance you got to be successful here at ETSU. Now,
when you talk about running the ball effectively, that means you're going to the outside a little bit, and that means wide receivers are going to have to throw some blocks.
Exactly right.
And that's a mindset a lot of times, especially with guys that are used to running routes, catching the ball. Have these guys bought into the idea of we're going to go smack people in the mouth and do some things a little different?
No doubt. There's certainly a mindset aspect to it, and I was proud of the guys. Third practice we put the pads on, and we had some perimeter screens and all that. Get out there where these guys, I see these guys work out. They're plenty strong enough, right? Then they got enough courage, right, to be able to block on the edge. And all it comes down to is, like you said, a want to. And hey, if they don't want to, then I'm gonna play somebody else that wants to, because but we've had no problem with that. These guys have been able to hold it down on the edge, so to speak, and they play with a chip on their shoulder. And I tell them, hey, you want to be the hammer, not the nail. So they like being the hammer, not the nail, and been trying to just help them out however I can. Close the distance. I got to push off the rock. And, make sure that we're not just sitting there catching. And we got to have, hey, good aiming points, good hat and hands, have a good base. And at that point, hey, it just comes down to pure strength and want to. And I've seen them work out, and I see how they work. And, it's been good for us so far. Now, not to say we can't be better at it, but that's why we got 12 more practices to keep working at it and make sure we're being the best that we can. That way we're turning 5-yard gains into 17-yard gains, or when that ball gets to the third level, we can't let our guy make the tackle, right? And save a you don't want your guy that, okay, I got the safety here, and I halfway jog off and then he makes a tackle 30 yards down the field for a touchdown saving tackle. No, that's never a good that's never a good feeling when you're watching tape the next day and you see, okay, dang, if I would have just busted my butt a little harder, he would have been able to, slip out of that, shoestring tackle and scored a 70-yard run. But now we got a 20-yard gain, right? So that's, it's been good so far, though. I think the guys, they bought into it. They've been, they get it, right? They understand. Hey, it's a mindset. It's all about leverage and want to, but. At some point, who wants it more, right? Who wants to block more? Who wants to tackle more? So,
all right, Dallas, we appreciate you taking the time. I've known you for a long time. Good to have you back. Good to have you on the podcast. Your first one, how'd it go?
Yeah, first one, it was great. So I don't know. I'm sure you've had some betters, but hey, we'll be back soon, hopefully.
Well, we've talked to a lot of quarterbacks. They're better receivers. So
yeah.
All right, Dallas, we appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Now.
All right, Dallas Dickey.
That was great.
You got a lot of West Georgia questions in, as you promised.
I promised I would. I really thought when he scored the game-winning touchdown to beat Valdosta his senior year, I thought that was going to be the one that he talked about, because they do, in fact. I looked this up. They play for a Peach Basket, but it's also a football rivalry. So I don't know. You figure that out. Football teams play basketball.
I noticed you didn't ask him about his loss, 31-28.
To North Alabama?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not ask him about that one.
All
that
right.
was a great game, though. I have a first-hand account of it from Mike Ezekiel down the hall.
What do we have tomorrow? See what?
Tomorrow we have offensive line coach Jake Guillermo, who's going to make you run through a brick wall, not through anything deliberate. He's also got Say What. We've got Say What on Jay and Keith on the Buccaneer Sports Network.
Side of the wall! Oh, you got to be kidding me!